So I don't know if you already know this, but our memories are not our best friends because they are not very reliable. They are either incomplete with a lot of gaps between them, or they are completely false. And on top of all of that, they are also often influenced by external factors and our own biases. So then what we believe to be true is often some version of the truth and not the truth in its entirety. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some really valuable tips on how to make our flawed memories our best friends, how to not fall in the false memory trap, and how to control and disempower our bad memories. But before we get to any of those things, the first thing to understand is that we do not have one single kind of memory. We have a range of memories. So it's incorrect to assume that our memory is this singular thing in our brains because it's much more complex than that. And some of the common types of memories are memories like working memories, which is like this mental whiteboard in our brains. It basically helps us in decision making and planning and logical thinking. Then we have something called the muscle memory, which helps us in performing tasks we have practiced all of our lives, things like riding a bike or playing an instrument. And we also have something called the episodic memory, which is basically the recollection of personal experiences. It can be things like the first day of your school or your 18th birthday or the day you got married. And then there's something called the prospective memory, which is this memory to remember something in the future. So this kind of memory can become a bit more challenging as we grow older, but the book Remember by Lisa Genova gives a lot of different tips on how to track some of these memories. Alright, so now that we understand what are some of the memory types, it's also important to understand how these memories get formed. So the memory formation happens in 4 different steps. The first one is called encoding. This is where your brain translates every captured detail in some sort of a neurological language. So basically when you witness an event, all the small inputs like the sights, the sounds, the emotions, everything gets converted into this memory code, which then gets consolidated into a cohesive pattern. And this is the second process of memory formation, which is called consolidation. And after consolidation, the memory gets stored in various parts of your brain. It could be in regions like the visual cortex, which is associated with your vision, or your auditory cortex, meaning things that you hear, or your sensory cortex, meaning things that you sense or feel. And after storage comes the last step when you want to revisit those memories or make a recall and go through them. So this last step is called the retrieval phase, where we recall or relive our old memories. Alright, so once we understand at a basic level what are some of the memory types and how memories actually get formed, we should be able to make sense of some of the tips in this book. So for instance, one of the things that Lisa talks about in this book is how selective our memories are. It's like our brains become an over-enthusiastic editor. It tries to pick and choose some details to keep, and it basically gets rid of other details that are not very important. So for example, if you are trying to recall a nice vacation you had, you may vividly recall the beautiful sunset you saw, but you may forget the minor arguments that happened just before the sunset. It's because our brains are often influenced by the emotions attached to them, and these emotions help us in consolidating certain memories. So the tip number 1 is on how to form a happy memory. Now, since we know that memories are often formed because of us paying attention to details around us, the next time when you are having a nice moment and you want to remember that moment for a very long time, you might want to pay attention to details. And by details, I mean your sensory details, things like what are you seeing, what can you smell, what can you taste, all of those things. And then you also need to pay attention to how it is making you feel. Are you feeling happy? Are you feeling excited? How is your body reacting to it? Are you out of your breath? Is your heart rate high because of excitement? Because the more data you have, the more chances there would be for you to consolidate them together. And here I would also like to add that there are other factors that can also influence the memory performance, and it's different for different people depending on the context. For example, it depends on what kind of personal significance that memory holds for you, meaning are you one of the many attendees at the wedding or are you the actual bride? But again, the more data, the more context, and the more labels that are associated with a memory, the stronger and more robust that memory is likely to become over time. And because it's a happy memory, the chances are that we are going to recall it during happy times in a happy context and add more details to it. And this sort of positive reinforcement is actually going to really become a valuable tool in our life and influence our mindset in the long run. Which leads me to tip number 2, which is all about adjacent memories. So another takeaway from this book is on understanding how to recall memories that are actual to the truth. Well, the first step is to pay full attention, of course. And once you give that undivided attention to a particular moment and all the details end up getting consolidated together, naturally in the future when you recall one aspect, one detail, you also end up recalling other details associated with it because they're all packed together, and activating one recall in some ways triggers other parts of the memory. So you can think of the whole thing as a memory network or a memory web, where each detail or aspect of the memory is like a node of network, and they are interconnected or woven together. When you activate one node, it triggers a cascade effect leading to the activation of other nodes because of the interconnections. And I'm sure you would have experienced something like this before. Let's say you're visiting your old home or going to a certain street that you no longer go to, but once you are there, you can start recalling these certain smells or sounds that is no longer there. It's because one memory cue triggers adjacent memories and brings all of them together. So one of the tips Lisa gives to all the students in this book, which is this idea that if you are studying for an exam, pay attention to every sensory experience you're having in that moment, along with, of course, the lessons for the exam, and then try recreating those same moments later while giving the exam. Because you are not only consolidating the details from your notebook or your spreadsheets, but also from your other senses. And later on, recalling one experience might fire up other correlated experiences. So for instance, try drinking the same beverage in the exam that you drank while studying for it. Try wearing the same kind of perfume if you can. Try listening to the same kind of song. You get the idea. Alright, so tip number 3 is that our memories are really false. It's because our brains create alternate storylines that are not true, that actually never happen. It can simply be a result of implanted suggestions or misinformation. So for example, you could remember certain things confidently, not because they actually happened, but because some other source of information impacted you so much that it got basically ingrained along with your other memories, and now you have an incorrect story with you. So the next time you remember something precisely as it happened, just know that the version that you remember now is actually slightly altered by your mind's creative touch. And understanding about this sort of malleability and fallibility of our memories can help us in critical thinking. It can help us in questioning the accuracy of our memories and also considering alternate perspectives. It can also help us in being open to what other people have to say. And because of that, it can also help us in conflict resolution, especially in interpersonal relationships, because we know we aren't always right. And once we have that nice relationship with our memories, we can foster a more relaxed attitude towards it, which ultimately helps to reduce the stress we may feel at times while thinking about the bad stuff from the past. Alright, so the last tip that I have is on how to stop bad memories from forming. But before I get to that, if you have enjoyed the content so far, or if you find it valuable, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. It will help the channel to grow, and the algorithm might recommend it to other people who need it. Alright, so let's be honest, we do not really want to have bad memories at all. We want our lives to be full of happy and pleasant memories, but we cannot avoid and end up forming bad memories as well. It's just how life is. But given a chance, we would not want to form bad memories, and while we do not have control over it, the least we can do is to be aware of them. Because when you have formed a bad memory, it sort of gets stronger if you give it a lot of power, if you recall it over and over again, if you ruminate on it, because you're not only reliving those moments, you're also adding on your own biases, your own bad experiences, your own narratives on top of that. You are giving it more flavor, more color than it actually came with. So over a period of time, it becomes a full narrative in your head. And as we just learned that at that point, it may not even be a true story. It could be a truly fabricated, truly imagined, self-destructive narrative. So when you have a bad memory, all you need to do is stop giving it too much attention. Don't go back to thinking about it over and over again. Don't give it a star-like treatment. And you may wonder, well, I'm not doing the active thinking. These negative thoughts about something that happened in the past just come to me, and then I'm taken on a ride that I don't want to be on. Well, in that case, all you need to do is to acknowledge the thought and then shift your focus onto something positive, like a fun activity or a good memory, because distraction works the best in these cases. It helps us in breaking the chain of thoughts. It breaks the pattern, which gives us enough space to adopt something else, which could be a happy thought. It's funny, but I have a friend who once told me that the moment he gets a bad thought about something, especially something horrible that happened to him in the past, he starts singing songs to distract himself. It's like he changes the channel in his head. It's like he goes from watching a sad movie to watching a happy music channel. So you could choose your own distraction, or in other words, you can choose your own channel. It could be sports, it could be music, it could be, I don't know, gardening, anything that would stop letting you relive the bad memories over and over again. Because if you do that, they won't stay in your head for very long. They wouldn't get consolidated, they wouldn't be stored, and you wouldn't be recalling them. And soon they will be deleted or be replaced by a happy memory. So let's be aware of these things, because our memories play a huge role in forming our mindset, and our mindset forms our characters, and our characters shape our destiny. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.